Good evening. Welcome to the City of Laconia Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. I'm Dean Anson.
Deb Williams.
Lisa Moran.
Dietrich Heather.
Stacy Susie.
Oh, nice. Sparkly mask. It's great. Okay, so we're going to start off by saluting the flag. We'll wait until you get untangled.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for coming. Whoa. Recording secretary? Okay. We already did the staff. This is great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Okay. Did people get an opportunity to read the minutes from the meeting of December 1st, 2021? Did anybody have any comments? Under 7.1, second line, chapter Okay, any other comments?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed.
A second.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank you. Okay, old business. So, Keller, have you heard from Mike or Bob? Bob, I thought, said he was coming.
Yeah, Bob said he would be coming. I haven't heard from him today, though. He emailed me last week about it.
Okay. Okay.
No, feel free to take it.
I'm sorry?
Here's another copy of that.
Just dawned on me, I'm in his seat.
Okay. Okay, then let's start out with the NRI and see if we can make some progress here.
And I apologize.
Foot?
I ran over a raccoon in the parking lot. It was problematic.
For the raccoon?
His name wasn't Charlie by any chance, was it?
No, it was Mike Delvecchio.
That close.
Okay, so we are,
I want something to play with.
I know. Can I,
Sure.
can we share?
Sure. I can do this too. I'm good at that. Thank you.
okay, so Taylor, you had pointed out in an email that you sent today that there were certain pages where you had made significant changes that you thought we should focus.
Yeah, so the first section, I fleshed out the bedrock geology on page 14 a little bit. I added as much as I could find at the time about these subjects, but if anyone has any resources that they'd like me to look into and add, I certainly can go back and do that. Page 17, I clarified the differences between the types of agricultural soils.
Okay, Lisa, did you get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I looked at it quickly. I mean, I think that's probably sufficient for anybody that's that's, interested in the subject, and she does direct them to other locations, so.
On forested soils on page 18 and 19, I kind of just summarized it in a table. Kept a lot of the same information, but tried to make it more readable and less like a big old paragraph.
Which section again?
Page 18 and 19, the forested soils.
All right. Is there a map with that?
For the forested
Soils?
Yeah, it should be at the very end. It's
All right, I'm just asking, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, prime soil. That doesn't mean prime wetland.
And there's a good, yeah, right. On, so prime soil, and I'm curious, and it's merely because of my ignorance, what in that gives it the greater value?
for the forested soils.
Yeah, farmland soils, I'm on farmland, I'm sorry.
Oh, on farmland. So that's all based off of, I think a lot of it's based off of moisture and slope. It seems like slope tends to be the defining factor between prime or local and state inheritance.
And stoniness, too.
And yeah, roughness and stoniness as well.
And what?
Stoniness, how many stones are in it?
So when you're talking about stones, and there are different classifications, what size stones are you talking, like golf ball size, or are you talking?
That, I don't know, you'd have to ask the soil scientist.
Okay. Okay, so 18 and 19,
Yep. And then also the 19 through 20, like that intro section on the water resources, a lot of that has been updated. I added some of the flood factor data, data from the evaluation study that they did on Winnipesaukee as well, and more information on water quality, or where we stand on water quality.
in terms of water quality, is it UNH or who is it that puts out the annual reports for sampling of surface waters?
I think it's DES.
DES?
I think
So
so.
they put it out by water body, right?
We've received reports that way, yes.
Okay. And so, would it be worthwhile to reference that under water quality, saying you can go to the DES website and whatever that address is, so that people, because we don't want to tell them in 2021 to go there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I can add in a link and
Okay,
see if I can get like the general page for like August or something.
yeah, because they update it every year based on what volunteers do and what they do, so, okay.
So, Taylor, I will just tell you, I know from being on the Lakes Management Advisory Committee, apparently DES is going through this big, like, website change, and different groups, like, the committee can't have a blog page anymore, and all, so anything, any link you do, I'm just saying, stuff may change.
Yeah, I'll double check and
Yeah,
stuff,
thanks.
especially before we post anything.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, so when we talk about watersheds, does it make sense to reference what's been done for Lake Winnipesaukee? Winnisquam is having a watershed management plan done now, but to reference those so that people, if they want to get more information, they can go there and,
So I discussed some of those. Do you want me to add the links in as well?
I think it would be helpful so that people can,
Are the links to the web, to those individual websites, or would they be posted on the Conservation District, or the city's page?
It would probably be directly to their website. I don't know if I could download that and put it on without the proper permission.
The city?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on page 24, I have a little graph of the ice out dates for the last century. We talked about adding that.
Nice.
Holy mackerel.
And then the last big change section was page 32, the wildlife action plans. I just left that out a bit more.
So, one of the things that I kind of noticed, just maybe in all of the sections, but
Where do you put your bet?
the concept of connectivity in our land management, you talked about, well, the wildlife action plan is kind of where it stood out, because that's kind of where that concept is more pronounced.
Yeah.
But even with, like, agricultural, management of agricultural lands and things like that, I'm just throwing that out there, I don't know if we want to talk about that at all.
That's like a section of how these all relate to one another, or
Not that way.
as in
Physical land masses, particularly the wildlife action plan, you know, that's a focus of that whenever you're looking at, is a parcel a priority parcel, well, is it connected to other parcels, or there are corridors for movement? So that jumped out at me.
Yeah, on page 39, there's a section on unfragmented roadless areas, but I think I could probably expand
Okay,
that to that connectedness.
I will be honest with you, I just jumped to the pages you recommended, so I
Yeah, no,
apologize
no
for
worries.
missing that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something, that area I could add some stuff about the different types of connected habitats and how they would work together.
Thank you.
This is yours.
Okay, and what was the last section you said you updated?
Page 32, for the wildlife action plans.
So Lisa, a question on the connectivity. Are you asking for explanations of why connectivity is good, or are you looking for where we have connectivity already, and maybe if we got one piece of land, we'd have more, or something like that? I mean,
That was, the second one is, I was thinking about the importance of that.
okay,
Because I just jumped to the pages she mentioned, I
Yeah.
missed some of the
Okay.
maybe content that it does talk about that, but, yeah, the second one.
all right. So that would be like a goal in the chapter, you know, for the master plan chapter.
In that, is there any way that we have an idea, because truly in Laconia, we have a large, amount of land that's owned by the state. And so curious as to whether we have control there or not, whether for passage, for recreation, or wildlife. I think, the state should start to define how it's going to, participate in the growth of Laconia, whether it be through outdoor recreation, wildlife passages, and access. If you look at anything north of, where is it? Southdown into Long Bay, all that property in there is owned by the state. They've done some forestry cuts. If you haven't been in there, it's a fascinating place to walk.
At the Pelgus Bay State Forest.
Right. And in this here is some of our connectivity that we look for in recreational areas also. But sometimes it feels to me like this town is burdened by the state and the amount of land that they own. And are they working in the same vein as we are for creating recreational access, for unbroken passages for wildlife and stuff like that?
The parcels that you're talking about, I believe, several of them, if not all of them, are under some kind of either encumbrance or contract with farmers. A small beginner farmer group is maintaining it. Some of those cuts, field edge cuts, are being done by the farmers who are under contract to the state. So the state has actively been looking for people to help them manage the land for I want to say productivity. I'm not saying maximum productivity, but with the field that the conservation district has management for, they have a hayfield manager, and they do periodic fertilization, but they have strict guidelines because of the water. So I know of those fields. I don't know if all of the parcels are under like the wooded parcels. We have a wildlife component to ours because we have several acres of wooded area as well. But I don't know if all the agreements are the same.
In that, I would find that Long Bay, at the access point to the water tower, has unfettered access to snowmobiles and other recreational activity, which allowed them to get onto the trails that go up and down to the weirs. In some way, I'd like to see the city rectify some of that, in that the rest of the population has access through that also in recreational trails up to Hilliard, up to the weirs, to start to tie it in. And I'm thinking this is something that can be overcome.
Isn't a big part of the trail after you go into August Bay State Forest, you run into property owned by
Langdon? Michael?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
He owns it, and there was a year when he shut down access to the trail through his property.
But I find him to be a general, congenial individual. And in some sort of interactive aspect here, we did pick up another, 13 acres?
Right.
As a donation in there. If in any way, and below it, it's the Korea sisters to get on to access to Hilliard. Whatever it is, either whether you maintain a recreational trail down Hilliard, for the continued access for humans to transect it, or open up some of this stuff. I think there's still a lot here in recreation that we can bring to our area without having to develop it. And some of it, as easy as cross-country skiing, it doesn't all have to be motorized snowmobiles or four-wheelers. Some of this human-powered stuff, I'm not going to say electric bikes are out, you know what I mean? But in some way here, to come up with a trail through there. As we're talking about interconnectivity for the animals, I'm thinking thusly, therefore, there should be some for humans also.
So I wonder if this then would start up another discussion about utilization of Ahern Park as a hub for hiking or anyway, or camping in some form. I mean, there are pros and cons to that, but I'm just saying that that's another aspect of it.
Well, maybe we could just limit it to an explanation of how the state proposes to use the state forests. There's Swain, they just did a major cut up at Swain State Forest. You know where I mean? Up on Meredith Center Road.
Is that Swain?
Yeah.
Cause there's another one there right on the corner, and I just don't have the name in my head, I'm sorry, I'm going
That
to fail
one's-
recall.
On the corner of Layton Avenue, or Daisy Gardner.
No, also on the corner of Pickerel Pond, as you're coming in there.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so everything to the south of what we conserved there on Pickerel Pond has been a strong cut, probably as of 5 years ago. And how do they utilize it? Do they just put it out, or is there some sort of state community interactivity in which we can create these trails?
Well, there are trails through that area that you're talking about over by Pickerel Pond, because we talked about the snowmobile trail goes
All the way?
all the
302.
way, goes through the Pickerel Pond Conservation easement.
Anyways, just a conversation, if we're talking about flow for animals and what it's worth, then we should talk about flow to humans and what recreation is worth to our community also. And that's, I guess, what I got.
How would we go about that? Would we have a meeting
Just like
with?
to ask the state, have the state come and speak to us.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, have
Yeah,
them come.
give us someone,
Okay,
so you can make noise and
gotcha.
we nod our heads,
We nod our heads,
you shake your heads.
nod our heads that way, sideways. I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that if we were to map out the amount of state forest that we have in this city, it's pretty significant.
No, map 7's got some conservation lands broken up into, it's not state, I guess it's wildlife and conservation.
Which page?
Map 7, page 57 of 59.
So we're seeing some steep slopes, we're seeing some conservation land.
But not broken
Looks
up.
like some of that is some of the state stuff too,
Yeah, it is, that would be the conservation, I'm thinking.
right? And so we'll notice in some of that conservation stuff, it does in fact, just north of Long Bay, go right down to the water.
Would you guys like it if I separated city conservation land from state on this map and made it stand out separately?
On that same map?
Yeah, like I could make the state,
Sure, that would be interesting to see. I could buy into that. But what we're seeing, and you can see this little 13 acre here, which probably would be our conservation land of ours. You can see it marked in there, and so it'd be interesting to see, at least when we go and talk about trails and stuff like that, or how it would benefit the community, we could see how we could improve our connectivity. Anyways, I don't know if I was in the right spot for that
Yeah.
discussion, but yeah.
No, I think that's a good idea.
I see a lot of this stuff, you know, as we talk about attractions, and it's not just pinball, you know what I mean, at this point. We're trying to get out and, you know, we're not going to shut down e-bikes, we're not going to shut down skiing or fat tires or this, that, but you gotta deal with it. You still have the Rices in there, and as far as I know, Jane is still receptive to ideas, but who controls that now?
Society for the Protection of
Correct.
Office.
Right, and those guys should be looking for projects to benefit the community also.
Lisa, do you think this would be an opportunity for NRCS to get involved in helping,
Well,
you know, look for parcels where we can do some conservation projects?
I can ask. I'm thinking that might because it's not tied to a Farm Bill project, there are some easement programs where they might say, oh, we have an interest to investigate for those easement programs, but because it's voluntary from the landowner, I'm thinking maybe a better route would be the conservation planners or something. I think there's in that family, it may not be NRCS, but in that kind of family of partnership, there's probably a group that we could look to. So let's have a side conversation about who could start that.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Taylor, are you looking for us to go through this document and come back with comments?
Well, I mean, I made a lot of changes based off the feedback we did last time. The only section that I have not touched that I would think I would benefit the most from for feedback would be the recommendations section, just page 43 and on. Just so that I wanna make sure I cover all of the big item tickets that we want to cover, because those will likely also be the same type of goals that are carried over to the master plan package. I've tried to go a little bit more detailed on these, just as a starting point, so if we would like some more broad stuff, if anyone's got ideas that they're interested in, let me know.
How are you?
Okay, so there's nothing in the table of contents about climate change.
Yeah, so I worked climate change into each category itself, so there's, in the soil section, I talk about how it impacts soils and whatnot. I mean, I can work that into its own category, or we can just make it part of the goals, where we dive more, like, I was intending on making a
On the agenda,
specific section for that
places
in the
where we
master
can,
plan,
click on the
and
documents.
tie all the goals together
What time
regarding
did you
those.
start?
Okay,
You think it's worth it to have its own
So
separate section
clicking
in
on this one.
NRI as well?
this is the draft NRI. And we're going through it.
Dean, what do you think is the best way to handle it, climate change?
Also skip through it.
Put it in each individual section, or have it as a,
Well, I mean, I think you certainly want to probably make that a major highlight or goal, or whatever you want to call it, when you get to the natural resources chapter of the master plan. But in order to do that, obviously you've got to bring it out in the inventory as well. And I don't think it matters how you do it in the inventory, as long as it can be referred back to the inventory document when we write the master plan chapter. I mean, they're very, in this case, they're very integrated and very much, they're not standalone,
Right.
very much intertwined. But the chapter does different things. I mean, the inventory is your inventory. It is what it is. You got a pond here, you got a swamp here, you got agricultural land here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is what it is. The master plan chapter is more, what do we want to do with this information, and how do we want to move forward and preserve, and as Mike was talking about, the interconnectivity, and there's two goals there. There's one for animals, and there's another one for people. But you got to be able to go back to the inventory as your justification, as your backup document, so to speak.
Okay, so we have this NRI. And and the NRI is gonna go into the master plan.
No, it's gonna be a standalone document. I mean, we will, goes on the website as a resource document under conservation and planning. It's there.
Well,
And then we're gonna create a master plan chapter. No I, just natural resources chapter, which will refer back to the inventory when appropriate.
will developers be inclined to look at this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Taylor and I had this discussion today. I mean, the master plan chapter particularly needs to be addressed to all audiences, not just developers, but
Right.
Johnny homeowner, conservationists, you know, everybody in the city or who want to be part of the city. It needs to address all of the issues in a broad way. Now, you can have goals that are more resident-oriented and some that are, you know, development-oriented, but, yeah, the master plan is not just for one segment of the population. Particularly the natural resources chapter, you know, because we're talking water quality, we're talking, you know, forests and agriculture and wetlands, et cetera.
And creating an opportunity, in as it were, in the spaces that are publicly owned to allow the
Right.
community to get out into it and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, when you look at that map of the conservation land, there's that natural passage from Opeechee over to Winnisquam, and yeah, some of it's a little narrow, and, you know, but it's there, you know, and you gotta cross a major highway, but, you know, it's there. You know, can we enhance that? If that's one of the goals, to enhance that, then I think that's great. I think we wanna do that.
And in this, and I'm not making a mockery here, I'm just straight up speaking, is a lot of these trails were how the indigenous people moved throughout the community. And they moved great distances, more than one would
Yep,
first imagine.
yep. But I mean, you know, your comment about the recreational trails, you know, environmental tourism, for lack of a better term, or maybe that is the right term, is becoming a very big thing. And for Laconia to be able to somehow promote itself, you know,
Correct.
we've got these trails that go from A to B, it would be, you know, very beneficial. But on the other hand, we also want people to stay on the trails
Right.
for the most part, because we don't want them damaging.
And then you have to take course for mixed use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Motorized, vice, human
Right, some
powered,
may be more
you
limited than
know,
others.
private
Absolutely.
access, place, open access under some conservation stuff.
Right.
But when you're talking as building as many buildings as even in, I'll just call it Ward 1, you know, you're recognizing that quickly you could have, over 250 houses, and those people are not gonna wanna get in a car and drive to Gunstock or Waterville, or,
Right.
So the other side of this, not because it's where I went first, but, so the state's gonna go, who's gonna pay for the maintenance? Who's gonna
the
pay for the
state
clean?
throw it down, come on.
Who's gonna pay for the cleanup? And, because I'm on the Belknap Range Conservation Coalition and very involved with the stuff that happens in the Mount
Yeah.
Major area, and just, you know, the amount of trash and all this other stuff that happens, and so I'm just saying, there's, be ready for that whole side of the discussion about who's gonna fix the
Right.
stuff.
It's okay, I can be on humans just as easy, it doesn't make any matter to me.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, the other side of that, the state has to take some responsibility for the reason that people come here.
They don't have to. They should, but they don't have to.
So I use the wrong verb. So, but, you know, that people come to Laconia, not for, just to see the mill. They come here because of our natural resources.
Yeah.
And the whole Lakes region, that's why people come here.
Yeah.
And if Laconia can have these kinds of trail systems and maps that maybe some agency puts together maps that show these are the trails that you could take, and, this is how long it is, and this is, then, maybe we'll attract different people that are, have fat tires or electric bikes or just want to hike or cross-country ski or whatever. And, then, that's an advantage. That's a real benefit to our economy.
So,
I got one,
What's that?
as I'm looking at this nice conservation land, right, in places, and this is one that I'm always told to be quiet, but maybe I'll try one more time.
I'll be quiet yet.
I was just gonna take this back if you weren't gonna do that.
The old Weirs Dump is 20 acres of city-owned property. And this was opened in 1947 and shut down in the 1950s. This is a piece at 20 acres, goes down and intersects with a range road.
What page are you-
Mostly steep slopes, mostly holds water for the deer. They're in there if you get in that close and look at what this is. Some of the old Weirs Dump has open 55-gallon drums with bullet holes in the bottom of them. Who knows what was in there? But would there be an opportunity here for a private-public partnership to be able to open and maintain trails within that?
I would think so. I mean,
And in it, is a recognition that, this is city-owned property, right? So what can we do with people who've been doing professional layout there to create some sort of access there? Certainly in the end, if you were, and this is what I loved about growing up in the Weirs and the Spanises up at, the Shangri-La, they always gave discounts for the kids for skiing at Brickyard or swimming in the pool. There are only 25 of us. But in this here, as you create these, if you are supportive of these trails, much like it is up in North Conway, Whitaker Woods, 100 Acre Woods, stuff like that, you'd be able to buy a pass and access these trails to the benefit of the trail and the community.
So I'm wondering, to Dean's idea about inviting somebody to come speak with us, I'm wondering if this isn't quickly developing into a bigger type of meeting, rather than somebody coming to speak to the Conservation Commission on a.
Well, I'm just curious, and I know there's monies here for this. Even if there's not money for private land, there's certainly money for public lands.
So one of the goals of the Winnisquam Watershed Network management plan that's being put together is to identify lands that could be purchased and turned into conservation easements. And, the plan is to specifically identify parcels, not just to, this is what you could do.
Right.
And it's not just in Laconia, it's in the other 4 communities also that are in that watershed. Okay, so now, since we have a stoppage here.
Right.
This is Bob Harrington. Bob's our newest member.
Robert, how are you doing?
I think I recognize the face.
It's hard, I know, it's hard.
So I'm excited to have Bob here because I think he brings a lot of history, like Mike does and like Lisa does. I think he brings a lot of history and a perspective that will be beneficial. So, thank you. So what
Because
we're,
I was in, sort of in the Weirs area since 1948.
Well, you got me beat.
Up on White Oak Road.
so what we're doing now is we have this natural resource inventory, and we're gonna give you a paper copy. And we're going through it. Taylor has taken the previous one, has taken the previous one and has rewritten it, added materials, and I think it's much more readable. So what we're talking about doing is, what I would like to do is to take this, the current document, read through it again, see what else we want to change or add to or whatever. And then, once this is done, then, as Dean said, we'll use it to do the chapter for the master plan, the natural resource section of the master plan. So, I think everybody knows that Bob, there's a conservation easement that he put on his land over on White Oaks Road, on both sides of the road. On one side, on the right-hand side, as you're going toward the
It was
Weirs,
a city, yes.
yeah, is the city. And on the other side,
It's the grassland preservation easement.
so Bob's aware of conservation, and that's,
No, and I'd like to speak right up and say that I've walked that property before and down onto the apple orchard and stuff like that. Found it fascinating, really, you know. And why not, in our master plan and our attraction, to be able to connect some of these conservation easements, or create like we did at Pickle Pond, at least a place to park with a sign that says, take your snowshoes here. I find it all the time. I have 47 units next to me in Beaver Pond Estates, and it's, well, at least disconcerting for my wife when I see young women walking across the backyard, but out to exercise. And I say, why would I say no? Except that I have no coverage, reliability, this, that, and then you're opening it up for dog walking. And so how do you control that? So those are just some of the things about getting to trails and access that I find one would have to deal with. Liability, cleanliness.
so maybe we need to have signs that say, you know, no pets.
No,
I mean, if you don't want pets,
well, you gotta have pets. That's what they're all in the, they're in the,
all right.
they're sitting in the condominium. They've watched enough reruns and they need to go walk the dog, you know, you gotta go
Gotta get
out,
away
walk
from their
the
husbands.
dog, yeah, or whatever. I don't have a husband, so I gotta escape other things.
In all seriousness, no, I mean, we talk about, there are several organizations, though, that have been facing, you know, that have trail systems and have had to address the issues that they've been having with them.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just saying that, you know, maybe, we talked about inviting the state to come and talk to us, but maybe we could also pull some of these other groups in on this and just kind of give us this is what you would expect picture.
There is a man called Ray, Alex Ray,
Yep,
from the,
common man,
no,
not him.
wrong Ray, and I could have the wrong first name.
Okay.
Right, so I apologize. But it's New Hampshire Backcountry Alliance. It's a bunch of skiers, freeheel skiers, climbers, outdoor enthusiasts. Sometimes I cringe because I've seen some of their projects, and they're good. They usually do them on state land or conservation land. These people are in fact lawyers who deal in land conservation. And they've done some stuff on Baldface and up in Bartlett above Town Hall Road. Sometimes it's odd when they come in with a whole group of people and you lose your forestry project to them. But there's certainly some words that they can say as to what attracts outdoorsness in New Hampshire, in the North Country.
Sure. Well, and so, and I would also, though, maybe approach some of the groups that would be interacting with the day trippers, if you will.
Tyler Ray, I'm sorry.
Tyler Ray.
Tyler Ray.
So, because I think in this area, just from my association, both with Gunstock and with this Belknap Range Conservation Coalition, so like I said, they focus on Mount Major, and they get people driving up from Portsmouth to hike Mount Major. They get people from, so these aren't people that are not necessarily, and their concept of what's private property, about what's okay to dispose of, and all this other stuff. I'm just saying, so I think yes, bring in that group, but also maybe bring in a group that's maybe dealing with people who aren't so committed to the outback, outdoors, the people who are the day trippers.
But at the same time, I would say, here's an interesting group convocation. If you could get some mountain bikers, you get your economic developer director from the city of Laconia. Oh, sorry, we don't have one, right? Or
Let me put on my other hat.
you got that. Just checking. But, to get this and have a conversation on what could actually be attractive here and why some of these, why interconnectivity for humans is good for the development of your community. We have over 400 housing starts on the books here in the city of Laconia. We don't need to flog it with more housing. We need to build it. We need to have the people, and why are they going to come here? You're going to quickly run out of dock space on the lake.
I'm not arguing with you, Mike.
I'm not arguing.
I know, I'm just thinking of other
Yeah, and that's
concepts.
good, and I'm open and consent. That's the only reason I throw it out there.
What about the Chamber of Commerce?
I think that's what I was trying to say before I started picking on.
Would
Or
get the
economic
Chamber of
development.
Commerce to sit down, talk to us with regard to helping put together maps that show where you can go hiking. How far is it? How difficult is it?
Well, there is, who sent that out? Mr. Harrington.
What?
There was a survey for,
The
Oh,
biking and pedestrian one?
yeah,
I don't know when those results are coming in, but I can email the.
Was that the Planning Commission, Lakes Region Planning Commission that's doing that? Yeah.
put some of that stuff there, if we can learn anything from that, if they can shine any lights.
So that's the other group to invite, the Lakes Region Planning Commission.
How do you have it? Do you invite all the people in the world? Do you have them come in and put pins on the,
Because the Lakes Region Planning Commission are the ones that are interested in budding up, like stuff that's happening outside Laconia,
yeah?
connecting it to stuff that's happening inside Laconia. That was why I was thinking of them.
Yeah,
Sure.
they have 34 communities that are all members.
Yeah, but
And so if we could connect Meredith to Laconia, so that you can hike from Laconia to Meredith, and
well, that's kind of what I just didn't know.
Yeah,
You might know of things beyond,
Absolutely, and I concur with that. But if there were any contacts to be made with some of that outdoorsy stuff, I've been trying to draw them down here. They look at me funny when they say, "You come from where?" I said, "Not where, I come from the Weirs."
So you're saying outdoorsy stuff, so you're thinking like the trout fishing people necessarily.
No.
There's a native fisheries
Yeah, I know
group.
those guys, no. You can't dip a line in a seepage. It's not going, you can
No.
catch it.
I guess what I was thinking of is that, but that's the kind of, that's the kind of group you're thinking about, the people that
I'm
are.
thinking actually more people who are physically active, who have already been inside on the computer for
Yeah.
their quoted 12 hours of the day and need to get outside.
Yep.
The dog has chewed 3 of your best shoes.
So are we at the point where we're saying we're gonna brainstorm and send potential, not necessarily she has to invite them, but potential names to Taylor, just to create a list for
Sure.
the next meeting?
Sure, I can throw down some contacts there, and, which would, full disclosure, I, recently went up to, this benefit, kid-oriented up at, in North Conway, and I met a lot of people, and it turns out I'm old.
Sorry.
So,
This is the youngest you'll ever be.
I know, so clutching at the edge and not cool. I'm still trying to get these people to come down and somehow look at us and our community as to the benefits of outdoor recreation. And anything I can do here to promote this from within my ski world, I would bring down here, and I will send you those contacts. You can see their skiing videos on YouTube.
Well, Meredith does a nice job too.
Absolutely.
They have maps that are printed out, they always have it in,
Is there
in the
anything for
paper.
Beach Hill? That's one of their preserves above the reservoir.
I don't know. All I know is every once in a while, it's in the paper and,
Oh, yeah, you go over to some of their locations and they have the maps right there.
Well, and I think New Hampton and Meredith, the conservation commissions themselves were involved in
Yes.
establishing trails and, so.
Okay, so if we could, if everybody could take a look at the current document and come to the next meeting with comments or get them to Taylor before, then, that would be what I would like to see accomplished.
there's a little mistake on page 25.
Yeah.
At the bottom, under rivers and streams. No. It talks about the Winnipesaukee River
Yep.
and how it starts in Paugus Bay and that there's a dam in Lakeport. And then it says it travels downstream to another dam in City Hall known as Avery, where it flows into Opeechee Bay.
Yep.
Doesn't really do that.
No.
Sweet, thank you.
So first, if you want to say it goes over the dam in Lakeport into Opeechee Bay and then travels down
Yeah,
the river
To
to
Avery
Avery.
Dam,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll fix that.
Okay,
And then you could say that it empties out into Winnisquam. Because
Okay.
it doesn't really even say that.
so I wanted to change horses here. The Winnisquam Watershed Network, as you know, is working with consultants to put together a watershed management plan. And the Winnisquam Watershed Network wants to have a presentation in late June, early July by the Loon Preservation Society. And it's supposed, it may be at the Belknap Mill. That hasn't been finalized yet. My question is, do we want to talk to Winnisquam Watershed Network and see if we could be part of that? Part of it as in you know, we could help advertise it, we could help them set it up, run it, take down,
Have information there.
have information there. But at the same time, there are 4 other communities, all of them have conservation commissions. So there's Meredith, Tilton, Belmont, Samberton, and if we could do the same, so I'm on the Winnisquam Watershed Network Board, and if we could reach out and get all of those conservation commissions to be together to sit down and talk about what our common causes are and how we could work together, I think that would be, not just on Winnisquam, but, you know, in general. But my question is, do you want me to talk to Lisa Eggleston, the president of the Winnisquam Watershed Network Board, to see if they would be interested in having us support them in this loon preservation in late June, early July? Do we want to do that or not want to do that?
I would say, sure, let's do that, but I also wouldn't want to then go, and Taylor, could you do this for us? You know what I mean? If we're gonna commit to it, I'd like to have us do it, like, so outline what we are willing to do in the capacity of, yes, we're willing to help you set up, we're willing to greet people at the door, do sign-in sheets, we're willing to personally email, pass that information on to our contacts, but not try to,
No, definitely not, no.
I'm just putting it on the record, that was my, I thought that's where
I
you
would
were
rather
going.
have Taylor do the NRI
Right.
and the chapter for the master plan.
Thank you, Lisa.
So that, well, I just wanted to put it out there so it's not a surprise to the rest of us that we're committing to that. So, because I can commit to that, but
You can or can't?
I can commit to being as part of the Conservation Commission, helping, yeah.
So can I. But do you want me to reach out to Lisa and ask her if she wants us to be involved?
Well, sure, I don't want to just crash in your party.
Okay, all right, I will do that. Okay. So I think we're down on new business now. Lake host for Messer Street. Do we want to have a lake host at Messer Street
Yes,
this year for OPG?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, do we know, is the boat launch going to be, that ramp going to be open to the public?
The current information that I have now is yes.
Okay, that's an improvement from the last time.
Well, I thought the contract, that line with and actually, the contract lists a couple specific things that the Conservation Commission and DPW are allowed to do on the site. So some of them would be, we can make repairs to the existing parking lot. We can plant and maintain vegetation along the shoreline of OPG. We can add a lead tackle collector box to the kiosk and replace the kiosk, and they give, some exhibit pictures of what, I think it's exactly what we were talking about earlier. We can relocate the portable toilet further away from the water. And we just have to display some Eversource and, public New Hampshire electricity information on their kiosk, and that's, all those things are things that we can do now with this agreement.
so it doesn't specifically talk about lake hosting, though.
No, Lake Host is not part of that,
Is that an oversight, or is that something that they don't want?
I would,
It
I don't
doesn't,
see any reason why we can't do it there, but I'll talk with Scott, but I don't, Eversource is not gonna be there at any point in time to tell us what we can or cannot do. Their real only concern with this whole thing was their liability over potential petroleum spills.
and will the city be,
Kayakers, yeah.
will the city be putting any infrastructure in to help, like with spills, should spills occur, is the configuration gonna change down there, or?
I don't know exactly what we're gonna do about that.
Okay.
I know that, you know, I mean, if something happens right at the shore where, you know, maybe it's on the soil, then that becomes an easier thing to manage and respond to than if someone is 10 feet offshore and has a spill. I mean, the current is just gonna take it. There's not a whole lot of cleanup you can do in that instance, so. And I don't know what the nature of the one incident that was there several years
I was
ago.
gonna say,
I
how
don't
did
know
they
what
happen?
the, what it was, whether it was on the ground or in the water or, but anyway, it was apparently fairly minimal, and I don't mean to, you know, downplay it, but
Yeah.
it was a fairly minimal spill and
Sure.
was taken care of, but they just don't want to be in the position of having to do that, and whatever liability may result from that, so.
So who's responsible for maintaining the ramp itself?
That would be the city.
The city now.
The city, okay. So one of the things that we should do is, when power boats power load onto their trailers,
Yep,
they have kicked up a big pile, quote-unquote big pile of rock out off, you know, probably 20 feet off into the water
Yeah.
from the ramp.
Not even, yeah.
So that would, you know, if you get a backhoe in there, you could, you know, move the stuff around and,
When we have a drawdown,
yeah, it should be this fall.
yeah. Because the last time we had one, I was.
What do you do,
like,
dredge right there to clean it up?
no
Yeah.
dredge, you can
No,
just
just, all you have to do
reorganize
is
it.
move it.
Move it.
I literally took a shovel last time
You move
and
it back
tried to
into
do it.
where the depression
But it was
that
pretty big.
where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we can,
Can we make a list of, proposals, like signage or whatever that might be nice down there and ask the city if we can put it up? Okay.
Yep.
Because, you know, that could be on the list, we could have, you know, no power loading signs there, we could have more New Hampshire Lake signs there, so.
We know how effective the no power loading is.
I know, once I get
There's a-
that
there's a-
paddle going,
there's a-
I
yeah,
just
there's a
can't
sign.
We
stop.
almost got beat up at Winnisquam last year.
Sign says, no power loading, and the guy is like, what's power loading? It's like when you rev up your engine to get it on the trailer, that's power loading. Oh,
They-
okay,
no,
and
they
then
do.
he revs up his engine and gets it on the trailer. I said, that's it, you got it.
It was the best.
I win.
Okay, so if we're going
So I can
to,
help you with that,
okay, so, help with,
just a list of recommendations.
okay, good, thank you. But that means we're going to have to fill out the
Yep.
New Hampshire Lakes form. And that's the easy part, because the hard part is finding somebody.
I
to
already
be-
have, I have a couple of teenagers now that are finally 16 that I worked with in school. So I
Okay.
know I have a few, plus I think we need to contact the Lake Opeechee Preservation Committee and get them involved this year, because we really haven't,
What's the
Alan
man's-
Beadle or whoever is.
No, it's not,
yeah, Gothier.
yeah, that's right, Alan Gothier. Okay,
And, you know, because they might be able to have, you know, they might have some suggestions too.
and the other thing we need to do is decide how much we're gonna pay them per hour.
Right.
12.50.
We tried $13 last year and got nobody. I don't think this year is gonna be any better
Nope.
at $13. Okay, the other thing is when an applicant comes in and asks for a demo permit, does a demo permit say before you start your demolition project, You have to put up erosion control.
Depends on what the demo is. Sometimes we require that, and sometimes we don't. Depends on where the demo is and what it is, and
Why wouldn't we have it on every project?
because if it's somebody's backyard and they're basically flat as a,
Then we would say, okay, this doesn't apply to you, but if we put it on every permit, so if somebody comes in and a guy is taking down the fly shop on Opeachy, he knows he's gotta put up before,
yeah.
not after.
Is there any kind of penalty for that? Because that was terrible. That was just blatantly
Ignoring.
disregard.
I mean, it's probably more of a DES function than the city, because they're within the
On Opeachy Street,
shorefront.
they took the old fish thing down.
There's a fly shop there.
The big shop, oh, the little building?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
the,
thought you saw
building's
it because
gone?
you went by right after I saw you driving your truck
and the
go
trailer.
by, and I thought, oh, she's gonna stop there
And
and
the
yell
trailer,
at
yeah.
them.
I didn't even see it, I'm sorry.
And they're putting up condos?
Putting up 2 units of housing, they will be condos, but it's 2 separate buildings.
On the same property.
Yep.
Has there been any plans for that? Have we seen anything for that yet?
I don't know about for the city, but I do have their shoreline permit.
With deck, or with dock?
They're using the dock.
There is a dock there,
They're
it's
using the dock that's
grandfathered,
there.
yeah.
I think there's 2 docks there, if
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember right.
So, and slightly irrelevant, will they be able to be brought in to have a, VRBO, Airbnb with these 2 new units? Being as they haven't been established for 5 years,
not
or is
in
there
that
some
zone,
other
no.
thing in there now?
Not in that zone, no.
Curious, cause we denied.
But can we have on the demo permit application that you have to, and then we can always say,
For penalty of the city.
Yeah, yep, we can do that. Absolutely.
Yep,
okay.
makes sense.
Okay, anybody else have any new business?
I do have one.
You do?
I do
do.
have, I have one as well.
Go. He's
It's what?
way
Mine-
more
Mine's
important.
probably not quick.
Go.
Go, all right, yes, sir.
Do you want me to do this one really fast,
Sure.
or do you want me to wait?
No, whatever.
I just wanted to let you guys all know that the grant award for Caucus Bay Milfoil is going to City Council for public hearing on the 24th. And, the value for this year is $30,085. So it went up a little bit, but they just approved it to go to public hearing, so. And then after that, I'll have Scott sign and give it back to Rich.
Great. Good, thank you.
Nice.
Take one and pass it along, please. So a follow-up to the discussion we had a couple of months ago now concerning changes to green space numbers.
Yep.
Have a couple of other dimensional, other things on the dimensional table of dimensional requirements that we want to do, so I want to get this together. So at the top of this page is the green space. You can take a look at the other things, but they're not related, but more than happy to take your feedback on them. So the it's 5 zones, although we have 2 different numbers for the CR zone, one for residential and one for commercial. And then to the right of the current and the proposed, we have, Taylor had done some research, which she shared with you concerning other towns, and these are the towns or cities that are somewhat similar in size or potentially make up to Laconia. So you can see the numbers that they have for the various kinds of zones they have. So the proposed, for the most part, is still more than the other peer communities, but less than what we have now. And one of the things that was asked was variances that went to the zoning board that would not have had to go to the zoning board if we had implemented some type of change in the green space. So those are the two things down there. There was one in 2021 and there was one in 2020. I didn't go back any further than that. They were fairly minor variances in terms of green. One was 1%, so I mean, you know, it's hardly worth arguing about, but the other one was for 9% relief. I can tell you, though, that it is a subject of discussion for people who come in to particularly code for the building permits of coverage area, and many times they can't do what they want to do because they're up against the coverage limitation, and I can't give you an exact number of how many more, you know, would be able to do something, but most people, when they find this kind of stuff up, they don't want to go to zoning board and pursue that. They either don't do anything, or they downscale their plans, or they do something else. But most people don't want to go through the zoning board process to get the relief that maybe they could get. And again, it's a maybe. But anyway, so in the residential single, we're going from 60 to 50, the same thing in the SFR, which is shorefront residential, up near the Weirs. The RG is the older part of the city, the more compact part of the city, Pine Street, Bowden, Baldwin, Winter, Highland, et cetera. Parts of Mechanic. A lot of Lakeport off of Elm is all RG. RA is the Blueberry Lane area and a couple other places in the city, the Apple Ridge Apartments down off of whatever that street that is.
Yeah.
Mile Hill or whatever it is, I
Right.
forget what it is, anyway. And then the commercial residential and the commercial resort residential and the commercial resort commercial part. I didn't change the commercial part, I did reduce the residential part. Most of the current commercial property in the commercial resort zone probably would be non-conforming when it comes to green space right now. You know, anything along Lakeside, you know, those kinds of things, they're probably just, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, so that's what we're proposing, and I'd love to have some feedback.
So if we go with the proposed, has there been a calculation of how much total green space is going to be lost in a particular zone? So like if we took the RS and we went with the proposed, how much land is going to be taken out of green space?
Eventually.
Yeah, if all of the,
No, I have not done that, and I don't think that I could possibly attempt that. Not every house that's gonna get built in the future
Right.
is gonna use 50%. A lot of them will still end up with 65, 70, whatever percent. A lot of the existing houses in the RS zone probably don't have the 60% right now for various reasons, because they were built before we came up with these numbers. You know, they were built in the 50s or 60s or whatever. So, yeah, no, I don't, I wouldn't even attempt that. I think it's one of those unknowns. The purpose here is not to eliminate green space, but rather to facilitate two things. The first is existing residential property, for the most part here, for them to do minor things like add a deck or build a garage or something along that line. Yes, if we have any new development in the RS zone, someone's certainly going to take advantage of that if they can, but we still have the 10,000 square foot minimum lot, so therefore it's hard to fill up 50% of a 10,000 square foot lot and be a reasonable, yes, you can build a McMansion, but it's not likely to happen. Same thing in the SFR. The RG is again that enabling existing, and one of the goals of zoning is to try to make as many properties conforming as possible. And I can tell you that in the RG zone, many properties, probably half, are non-conforming now when it comes to coverage, because they're on a 4,000 square foot lot, they got a 1,500 square foot house and garage on it, they've got a driveway, they've got a deck. I mean, it just, there's no way they have 60% green space on any of these properties. In the RA, I looked at the couple of big projects that are up on Blueberry Lane and tried to do a quick little calculation of what they have for coverage, and they're probably around 40 or 45% currently. So I don't know what the numbers were when those projects were done. They were done in the 70s and 80s, so stuff has obviously changed over the years, so I don't know, what the number was back then. Maybe we didn't even have a number. I don't know, And the commercial resort, I think that's more of a for the residential number, that kind of puts it in line with the RG and the RA, and quite frankly, residential development in the Weirs is probably going to be more dense anyway, other than single-family homes. It's just because the properties are valuable up there, and people are gonna wanna maximize. They're gonna pay a lot for them, and they're gonna wanna maximize what they can get on them, so,
I wanted to follow up, in part of our discussion, we talked about what potentially reducing the green space would do to water infiltration and the drainage system, talking about the age of our draining systems and potential of phasing in the zones where we do these reductions just to kind of monitor what's happening to the drainage systems as we go. And I didn't know if the DPW had any input, or the fire department, or somebody, or.
We could do that. I mean, we could do, we could do a 60 to 55 and kind of thing, and then maybe a couple of years revisit it, or whatever.
In my mind, I guess I was thinking, rather than play with the percentages, play with the zones of the city. Like, so we'll do Lakeport first and see how heavily that drainage system is impacted. And if we're finding it's getting overwhelmed, do we need more infrastructure before we just blanketly do it all over the city, and all of a sudden all the sewers are failing, because, all the storm drains are failing because they're overwhelmed. Not that that's probably gonna happen, but we had talked about that. I don't know if there was any follow-up discussion with either DPW or, and I just had a thought, and maybe it's a little random thought that shouldn't even be voiced, but if we suddenly start, or in some way increasing building square footage, does that impact the fire department's need to have more people on staff? Or I don't know if that's even in their equation. I'm just curious on that one. But the drainage one was something I was a little concerned about.
Yeah. I would say at this point, and I find it fairly curious, that every time they build a new set of houses or buildings, that they say there'll be no impact on the fire department. And I'm always like, well, you're building another structure? Of course it's gonna have an impact on the fire department. It's one more thing to take care of.
Yeah.
or you're building 5 more, 10 more, so stop coming in and saying it's not gonna impact it. And then if we're building for real people and real people to live here, you know what? Maybe it's not all summer people, maybe some of those people have kids that go to school,
I think more,
taught by teachers, live there the whole year, you know?
probably more gonna be the case now. too.
Right, and so I think we can start shifting our belief system from the ones who come in and say, well, it's a summer home, you know? No, every unit you have, built in this day and age is able to be occupied for a full 4 seasons. So in that point, let's stop making pretend.
You know, that's a point well taken, Lisa. Let's consider that, and, pros and cons either way, but, yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to Master Plan Steering Committee tomorrow night with this, so I'll make that part of the data point.
So, yeah, I thought, going from 60 to 40 was a little drastic, and I suspected, I'm in the RG, zone. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you must be trying to conform what,
That's part of
Is
the
existing.
consideration, absolutely, yes.
but they, but then I go down to the unit density, and boy, I don't know, to go from 6 to 8 in the RG zone seems, like Lisa's talking, it seems like a burden in that area.
Yep.
And just as a side note, only because you mentioned drains, is there any way that, we could just write up something in Laconia Links or something on, I was walking the dog and I cleared 4 drains that people had plowed over, but didn't clear them, and I'm like, you guys have no idea how important this is to have these clear.
Oh, I love calling Public Works, and they should step out and do a little more.
Well, but, you know, to that point, I was walking in front of the Congregational Church. You cannot walk on that sidewalk.
Oh.
It is because you got a dam on both sides, and it is a sheet of ice,
Yeah.
and it's about a half an inch or an inch thick.
January in New England.
No, I think it gets down to what Tracy was just talking about, Stacy was just talking about, which is that, you know, we gotta cut a hole through so that the water can get out onto the road, so that the ice out on the road.
Yeah.
Public Works, Public Works.
So I don't wanna deviate too much off of this. I also, on the structure height, somebody had tossed out in planning board going by the current height of buildings and using a percentage instead of an exact number, which would make, so if you have all of your buildings at 45 feet tall, somebody coming in would not be able to go
Above that.
above a certain percentage of the average of the buildings surrounding it. That way you don't end up with a 60-foot skyscraper surrounded by little 40-foot.
I don't know what town you've been to, 60 feet is relatively short. I just been to Boston and such, you know.
Well, what are the condos?
I was gonna say, what are the condos over by Barton's?
Yeah,
How tall
that was
are
it.
they?
Those are 60 feet,
They are,
No.
no. they're not.
58.
No, they're not that tall.
They look like they're.
I know, we
100
just,
feet.
50,
I thought it was 54.
yeah, 52, 54.
But that's a perfect example.
Okay, so, but watch this, and
If they had to have a percentage of those buildings around there,
Because I don't think they would have been able to
No.
develop it.
and then you would have less
But it would
income
look better.
for your taxes, and you'd have less services that the city would be able to provide by these nice people coming in and doing
I
their.
voted yes on that, so you're preaching to the choir.
You voted yes?
I wanted it, yes.
But here's one of the
Percentage,
things, and this will get to it, and, you know, we're talking about density on lands, you know, and not, making a house for every 2.5 acres 250 feet of frontage, 200 feet deep, and trying to maximize not just building density. And I was horrified by this back in the day. I had to learn a bunch, you know. Everybody with chickens in the cabinets and 14 people. It happens. The Bronx just burned down how many people? Right? And so that stuff's real, and those are worries to be had. But I did drive to Merrimack down Route 3 this past week in a mission that I had to do, and I looked upon the development that had been there over the past 20 years. I hadn't been there in a really long time. And I'm seeing 4 stories of buildings where people live. And I know that each one of those units is generating $1,800, $2,400 a month for the people, yet there's places for them to live. So I wouldn't see this as my front line for the state school, but certainly you can see 3 or 4 covens of these multi-story apartments, 60 feet tall, 55. And having the place where people want to stay. So where, once again, is the state involved in trying to promote what we want? Once again, when we're looking over at the state school, we have the best advantage for services, water, sewer, without wasting all of our open lands, which we love to protect. So maybe in that, in something that's still close to our density of our schools, of our access for supermarkets and stuff like that, maybe I looked at this and said, why are we not even doing this? Why does this not happen? I know there's a lot of protection, I know there's a lot of farmland and stuff like that. So where does the balance become? Some people say, oh, you can't do this because, no one's going to be able to afford a $250,000, $280,000 house. Well, turns out they can. And they do it a lot. And so to be able to do that there, where it's close, would be advantageous to this town. And I'm starting to believe more in that, as opposed to wiping out large sections of farmland or open spaces.
The mixed concept that they have for that, one of the mixed concepts that they have for that is including agriculture, although I think the prime candidate who was interested at the time has maybe no longer as interested, but that model could still be employed, so they could keep part of that space open if they wanted to, but productive.
Okay, so what do you want us to do with the green space?
I'm just,
Look at it.
this is what I'm proposing, and I've got some very good feedback from Lisa, and I guess one of the obvious question is does it go too far, or is it just right? Did it go not far enough? Or, maybe you're just neutral about it.
But in it, new construction would have the advantage of taking a larger print of maybe housing that is aged. Maybe not everybody wants to live in a 150-year-old house with a raccoon. And I think once they come along and they start creating these new housing units where the people can afford to live in it, then the people who are struggling to find housing here, some of those 150-year-old units will be vacated by people wanting to move on up.
Well, and I'm wondering, to Dean's point about, auxiliary apartments and all that other stuff, and that might be where some of the people who are having affordability issues land. And I don't know that, but I'm guessing.
That is definitely one of the buzz terms right now, and that one of the main solutions for the housing crisis is accessory dwelling units. And, you know, I don't know that it solves our problem 100%, but it certainly, every little bit will help, for sure.
Which zone gets the most requests for
Or ADUs, I would
RG,
say
Stacy.
probably the RS zone.
Really?
We've had them all over the city, so, I mean, but, yeah.
So the primary purpose of changing green space percentage is so that existing properties will be in compliance.
Depends on the zone. For the RG zone, yes. That is a bigger driver than in the RS zone. In the SFR zone, I think it's more of a number that's perhaps realistic as opposed to, you know, what we have now, and that's my opinion.
And you're not worried on that shorefront zone about erosion dropping down to 50?
No, I think, you know, we have a lot of other regulations that control that in terms of slope and what you can do for, you know, particularly right along the water.
So,
And DES is involved as well. I mean, it's not just us. If someone comes in and says, I want to do a new house or whatever on this piece of land, you know, they gotta go through DES as well. It's not just us saying, okay, you're good to go, you know. It's
theoretically, those other constraints could take away their 50.
yeah, could, right, yeah.
So when do you want a decision? Not that we haven't been.
Kicking this down, what?
Gotta do it tomorrow.
Well, he's gonna make the proposal.
I'm gonna make a proposal tomorrow. I mean, I would say within a couple of weeks it would be fine.
What is the Weirs? Is the Weirs commercial residential?
Yeah, it's the CR, commercial resort, yeah. And
RR
SFR.
There is RR1.
Yeah, there is
So-
some
That's
RR,
right.
but I'm not proposing any changes in the RR. SFR is if you look at the map, the brighter yellow that's at the top of the golder yellow, that's the SFR, and then the blue, just below that is the, commercial resort.
I would worry about that more than anything, going
You-
from 60 to 40.
The SFR?
No,
Okay.
the CR,
Oh, the CR resort, residential part?
yeah.
Yep.
Only because, you know, we are a destination city for our lake. Do we want it to be solid cement
Yep, okay.
on all the way? Or do we want to keep it so it's a little bit nicer so people don't go to Meredith or Wolfboro instead? Plus,
What do you
plus
mean
then you have
solid
to,
cement?
well, I mean, just going from 60 to 40, that's a pretty big change. I think.
50 more palatable to you?
What are you talking about?
60?
If it were up to me, I
Well,
would leave it at 60.
But I think in the point of resonance in that you're trying to bring some of these things into compliance, the Weirs is completely chopped up from the 1800s. So if you get some semblance of conformity, there's some benefits to that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the Methodist campground area.
Right,
you-
that's true.
All bets are off. Every single property down there is absolutely
Built on his neighbor.
no matter what. But when you get off, you know,
I'm thinking of
you
people
get out of the
coming in,
1890s and get to the
tearing down the
1950
old
and
places
beyond,
and putting in new
it's a little
places.
better. Yeah.
I mean, if you were willing to go to 50, I would, if this was a vote, I would be in favor of voting.
For the CR residential?
Right.
I mean, I think, that, you know, just in terms of runoff, that's important too.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with these changes, my biggest concern is exactly that runoff. You know, because we get 17 inches of rain like they did in Tennessee or Kentucky. We are, you know,
Yeah, so, you know, to that point, and that's a good point, with the exception of the SFR areas, for the RS and certainly the RG and the RA and to most degree the CR area, we already have a fairly robust stormwater system, drain system. But I hear the concern about, you know, having more come off the land and
More
have to
permeable.
rely
Yeah, it
on
would be
that
more
system.
permeable.
Yeah, I understand that point.
Once that drain freezes over, that's it. No,
Well, you'd imagine like
may as well
public,
not have a drain.
you'd imagine like Public Works was actually doing the sidewalks in the Weirs at that point.
Okay,
You know what, and I gotta be honest here, in the commercial resort for the residential, I don't have a problem with, you know, the balance in there. I
That's just
recognize-
one, you don't have to change it.
Just one. I just weighing in there, if it came like that, I'd say, you know, I'm not, I see it for the other ones there's no reason why you should reduce the commercial resort residential.
not final, this has got a
Deb, I'm going tomorrow night, I got
a
you
long way to
back.
go.
Sticking around.
but, you know, okay, so here's my concern. My concern is that we make this blanket change. And Mike comes in, he makes his proposal in the CR residential, and at 40, and you approve it, and I come in, and you look at my property, and you say, hey, you're gonna have more runoff than Mike did, so we're not going to approve yours.
But wouldn't you have a, drainage study signed off by a wetland scientist and an engineer to be able to build your proposed building?
So, let's just think about Aqua Vista. Aqua Vista came in, you know, Chris Dupree came in, and he said, I have this property I'm talking about. And we said to him, how much of that property do you own all the way down Scenic Road? And he said, I own all of it, but I am only talking about this.
Yeah.
And we said to him, hey, wait a minute, we want to see a drainage plan for all of it before we approve one of them. And we didn't get anywhere with it. And then a couple of years later, he came in and he said, thank you for approving that one. Now I want to approve the next one.
But
Exact same.
we saw that in Southtown too, in that it was put together piecemeal and they didn't have an overarching drainage,
Right. And they still don't.
plan. Yeah.
Yes. I don't want to do that because I don't want it to go against me. I mean,
Right, that's it, yeah, yeah. I mean, God bless him for being honest,
Yeah.
you know? If we don't think about our drainage in this city, I hope this intern comes in and he can help us, you know, better understand what's going on. And then get somebody cleaning drains and,
I've gone from cardboard to drains now, my latest.
well,
no, you're making progress.
I
You're making
am.
progress.
I want to kill the lake.
yeah, I mean, there are, so.
That's a very reasonable part, okay. Anyway,
All right,
So what do you,
see you on February 2nd, which would be Groundhog Day, and we can,
Already took care of that kid. Done.
so what are your question marks for the height? What are your feelings?
we've had discussion at planning board about the height issue. No one has given me a number that they wanna see, just that they don't necessarily wanna see 60. They wanna see, I don't know what they wanna see, they wanna see something less. So the question to, primarily to the planning board, but probably the master plan steering committee tomorrow night is, you gotta give me a number to plug in there.
Well, I had said 45.
Yeah.
But then you get into the discussion of building upon a footprint.
Right.
Right, and so it's more economical for a developer to build upon a singular footprint than to break off and create another footprint, which goes to the fact about using more property than you need to create the same amount of living units on X piece of property. Just another thing to think about.
So you wanted to go up.
75, 100.
You've been in the city too long this week.
You know, you need to get outside more often. Have you thought
I'd like
about,
to see the mountains.
Me too, right from the top of my penthouse. Send up the pizza.
that is the mountain.
So I could see, like Stacy had said, the percentage of the building heights around it not to exceed,
10% more or 5%
But I
more.
think it's
but also
restrictive for
not
your
to
development.
exceed,
But they can go and get a
50.
variance. To keep you guys on
If they
zoning
like to go in
busy.
front of ZBA, because now they're all scared to go in front of ZBA, you might
Oh, you
ask
guys
questions.
didn't give a good persona.
we need a Laconia Empire State Building, I don't know.
I'm thinking of wiping out the parking garage. I can go to 250 feet.
I like the idea of a percentage with developers being told that they can go for a variance.
Yeah,
And then have him make a case for the variance.
That's the one.
Instead of us just like,
Yep.
I don't think anybody that drives past those new condos wants anything higher, that's for sure.
me and Bart.
don't forget across the street from, the Guilford place there. Right, just north of Shaw's, before you get to White Oaks. And then the places on the west side of that road went to 60 feet. There's 3, 4 of them in there that went full 3, stories, if not 3.5.
But they're up on the hill, right?
No, they're on the waterfront. They're more slammed on the waterfront than the ones down at Barton's. They're just not as big and broad.
They look like elevator shafts.
Yeah, how long have they been?
Maybe like a, maybe they look
I
like
know, I
a,
think I missed it.
maybe they look like a big finger. And you know what, I approve, I actually was there when we approved the 60 feet, and then I was aghast afterwards, I must admit to being aghast.
Maybe I haven't seen them.
Why are you guys approving?
We can see what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we should have them do models next time. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's my, a percentage with a variance, if you want an answer for structure height.
That's not bad.
With an application for a variance, not a, making a
Right.
variance.
With a limit of,
Thank you.
with a limit of 50.
No, can't have a limit.
Okay, Mr. Foote, you have an issue.
I have one more thing if anybody's inclined.
I have one more after that, so you go next.
No, you go
Hey,
next.
go quick.
All right. So some of the stuff that I read about is everybody goes away and there's a special season on the lake, truly, after everybody goes away and, it freezes. And yet it continues till after the freeze. And I've been reading some stuff on this from the, Winnipesaukee Forum, but I'm wondering if there's any, reference or heart, because we talk about black sky initiatives onto a darkened shoreline initiative. So when everybody's there, we don't have lights always shining out on the ice and the water. To be truthful, there would be studies that would tell us that the light on the ice affects the fish underneath. Not making it up. And so if there's any studies or any feedback on dark shoreline initiatives, I'm wondering if it's something we might want to consider or look at.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with the bicycle in the bar?
I was walking and I hit a speed bump.
How fast were you going?
I had to go back for my bike the next day.
Oh,
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so the last issue I have is, I think Bob lives in the Taylor community. Okay, so the Taylor community has an environmental committee. You know that?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could be the liaison between us and
I
the,
was thinking about talking with the fellow that's head of it. Yeah,
yeah,
what was the lady's name?
it's a lady, and
She and her
Or was.
husband, the two of them.
yeah, yeah.
the husband and wife, and she was a spokesperson. But they're what? Taller.
They
Well,
were
it's
paradox.
Yeah.
So if you could be the
They
liaison,
live on Kinsman.
I think so.
because they're doing some really cool stuff.
Yes, he's the go-getter.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you could be the liaison between us and them, that would be.
Yeah, I have, at this point, I have no idea what their agenda is.
Maybe you could give them an agenda.
Well, it does,
What did we talk
it does
about
seem
last year
some
to them?
short
Right, perennials.
observation time that
No.
Taylor puts a lot on the ground there.
Yep,
Invasives, did we talk to them about invasives?
And
pollinators.
after every storm, there's salt on every piece of
Ooh,
blacktop there. And what they spend in fuel for their equipment must be astronomical because of equipment going all the time. For every storm, I'm cleared to my doorstep by about 7:30 in the morning. And that's for the whole unit, whole compound.
lot to do with, liabilities and access
Well, yeah,
and stuff
certainly,
like
they've
that.
got reasons to do it, but, well, you know, I'll look into that.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the other thing that you've been talking about just recently is of certain concern to me in the meeting that I have tomorrow at noontime, and that's the housing authority.
Yeah,
And we, along with a lot of other people, are in desperate need of housing and affordable housing. And we're working to try to do that. And we've got some plans going that are gonna be affecting some of the current open areas around town.
Okay. Good. Yeah, we're getting a lot of representation here. You're all tied in. So, okay, so, you wanna talk to us about,
Just three things, actually. Am I, the last one to read The Hidden Life of Trees? Did anybody read that?
I have it,
Yeah,
I started reading it,
say, I thought you did.
Highly recommend.
yeah.
My other question is, did Summit Ave come before you guys? Taylor, does that,
it was set off.
I don't think so.
I couldn't
I don't think there was
remember
a
it.
reason for them to come to Compound.
Okay,
No.
I just,
I believe they're only dealing with a shoreline permit, so there's no
Yeah.
wetlands.
oh, okay.
And I gotta, in defense of those people, they've been really good about following up on stuff. They learned a bit from coming in, and I found them to be, kind of see what they're going through there. But, they're fairly compliant, and they do take feedback well.
Okay, I was just curious, because I wanted to make sure and get, any input that you guys had. I wanted to make sure that it got forwarded, but if they didn't even. And then, just to let you know, remember the storage application on Waterford Place?
Right.
On the Guilford line?
Yeah.
He did say, no to the easement.
You said no to the easement?
Really, he needs to protect all those cattails, so he can,
No, he needs to pay higher taxes on it.
yeah, I concur.
So, because I did specifically ask if he had thought about it, and,
That's good, so you get to pitch that again, and they didn't take it.
he did,
Oh.
he said no.
But did he have a reason for saying no?
I wasn't about to go down that road.
I just thought if he had a reason, then maybe we could learn from.
Oh, no, in fact, he was very quiet. He was on Zoom and his representative was, speaking for him. And the rep just said, the owner decided, no, it was too much work at this time,
Work,
so.
draw a line.
One of the concerns was, the site, security guards, or people don't have access because it's comfortable and it's not safe, like that. And he also mentioned that the owner of the property, like 90% confident it's not going to have a pattern on that floor, but problem.
This owner,
Yeah.
Can you remind me what we're talking about, where we're talking about?
There's a self-storage area going in on Artisan Court.
Oh,
on the
Lily
Guilford
Pond?
line.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
near Lily Pond.
Okay, thank you.
and Dean had suggested that they put the wet area into conservation, and then obviously they didn't pick up on that.
Thank you.
And just flag him so if when he comes in again, just kidding. Okay, so what's going on in the planning department?
You're looking at it.
We're doing master plan stuff, and we're doing, we're talking about density and all kinds of good things.
Okay,
I guess with the master plan stuff, I don't think everybody got a copy of this. If you didn't, I'll pass another one. It's just like a general schedule that I'm gonna try and follow for updating the master plan for the natural resources chapter. So the meeting dates on there, I kind of just tried to fit it into a schedule we already have for meetings, but I think it might progress a little faster than we thought. Yeah, I'll just continue to add that there's not that much meeting until the February second meeting, like we talked about, with the second meeting actually will be in the master plan website. I don't know, headings and things like that, just so I can start to organize it a bit more, so that's just something like a small thing that I'll add on to as we go. One of the big ones will be drafting out goals, objectives, and actions for the chapter. I think that will probably take the most time to make sure we touch on everything that we want to touch on, considering this is the first update in a while, so we want to make sure that these are going to be things that are relevant for a while. Yes, but just so everybody has a copy of this, and I can send out this table in my follow-up email with the minutes and stuff after the meeting.
I have a question, and I'm a little embarrassed I don't know this. So we get our master plan done and everything, and then does this go to like a state level? Is there somebody that puts all these master plans together at the state level and kind of figures out what's going on with the state?
That's a question.
No? Okay. I'm sorry, I just,
You'd probably.
You'd like to think so, but no.
Okay.
It's really just for us and anybody who wants to be interested in Laconia.
Yeah, I just thought that might help with trends or to see where things are really, if we're concerned about measured growth or whatever, how.
I mean, there are other initiatives in the state that do some of those things, but they're not relying on anybody's master plan chapters to do that there. I just got a call today from, I forget what department he was in, but anyway, they're gonna be looking for projections on housing so that they can project population growth, and it's like, well, good luck with that, but anyway.
Yeah,
we'll-
so that's like the consortium of regional planning commissions.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I wish I could remember what it was, but there are certain things that a city can't do if they don't have a master plan. It was one of those workshops I attended, and I wish I could remember what you can't do, but it is really good to have one.
Oh, yeah,
Because you can get away with doing stuff that the state will let you do because you have a master plan
Let you get away with stuff.
to do. Yeah, I'll look it up. There were certain things you can't do if you don't have one.
You
But if
can't
it's
do a-
in
You
writing.
can't do a building moratorium without a master plan.
Oh,
Yeah, see, there's something.
oh, so you couldn't ban, and I'm really not being facetious here. You couldn't ban short-term rentals if you didn't have a master plan. If you were a community, Grafton, I don't know, some place like that, who was, resistant on any, ZBA type stuff or any rules, you know, then you wouldn't be able to put a moratorium on it because you didn't have a plan.
Building moratoriums were very popular in the 70s,
Right.
and a lot of towns particularly did them just to stop growth. We're not gonna issue any building permits. Period.
Really?
Right.
Interesting.
And of course, who's the first person who goes into the town hall and wants a building permit? It's always somebody local, and they go, oops. You know, it's never the guy from out of town that's the first one to get stopped. It's always the guy who, I
No.
gotta build a new barn or whatever,
I,
you know.
I'm learning this, trust me, I get it firsthand from my town. Got it.
So anyway, that's one of the things you can't do if you don't have a updated master plan. Is you can't claim, oh, we can't grow anymore, and if you haven't mapped out where you're going and why you're going there.
Huh, interesting.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Nothing else?
Make a
Okay.
motion that we adjourn.
We'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of, oh, no, any comments or
Good.
discussion on adjourning? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody.
I'm staying.
Drive carefully.
Did you see that they're having a workshop tomorrow on the master plan?
Yeah.
On, from noon to 1?